Welcome everyone, this is Jeff Wilkerson, Professor of Physics at Luther College, bringing you what to look for in the night sky. This time we're talking about the week of July 6th. We've got a good midsummer sky, so we're into the middle of summer for observing. Short nights, interesting stuff toward the center of the galaxy. So Scorpius, nothing could say more midsummer to me than Scorpius. That's what we're going to look at this week. We looked at it probably 6 weeks ago. But now it's really well placed, so we'll spend a little bit of time with Scorpius. Plenty to look at there. We could spend every week looking at Scorpius if we wanted to. Let's start with what we can see of the planets and the moon. On the first night, we're talking about the evening of the 6th into the 7th. The moon rises just a little bit before midnight, and it's just barely over half full. So this is what we're looking at on the first night there. That, go out at midnight, it should be up into the sky well enough to see, and it sits just north of Saturn. And as the night wears on, that distance will be closing, but we're talking about 6 or 7 degrees. Remember, a fist at arm's length is 10 degrees, so about half a fist width at arm's length should be the yellow glow of Saturn should be sitting below the moon right there. And then over here is Neptune, so you can scroll across this direction and see if you can find the greenish blue dot that looks like Neptune. And then while we're there, let's just check out about 21 degrees to the southwest of Saturn is Dipta, the beta star in Cetus. So this is a star we like to check out every once in a while. There's some interesting stuff around here. But that's what we're looking at in the evening as we turn toward morning, as we run past midnight for the first night of the week. By the morning of the 11th, so early in the morning on the 11th, the moon has waned down all the way to 13% full. So it's a nice, beautiful crescent moon, and it sits above Mars. So it starts the week 7 degrees above Saturn, and it ends the week 5 degrees above Mars. And Saturn is relatively nearby Neptune. Mars is relatively nearby Uranus. So see if you can find the blue-green dot of Uranus that lies pretty close, just a few degrees to the west of Mars here. This is all getting lost in the glow of sunrise just a little bit, so it's a little bit of a challenge. But the thin crescent moon should be beautiful with Mars. Those two things should be easy enough for us to see. Okay, let's turn our attention then to what we want to look for in the evening overnight sky, and that's Scorpius. Scorpius is up all night right now, so it should be plenty visible for most observers by the time it gets to be dark. For me, sitting at 43 degrees north latitude, Scorpius is pretty far south. So Scorpius is something of an observing challenge just because of how far south it is. If you live just a few degrees farther south than I do, then this is a much better object, a much easier object to see, but I still love Scorpius here. We find Scorpius, the big bright orange star Antares, rival of Mars. So it's orange-red like Mars, is a big bright star, the brightest star in the southern summer sky. So we drop below the summer triangle, and the biggest, brightest star we have is Antares, and it should look distinctly orange-red to you. 3 stars out in front of it, all 2-point-something magnitude stars, so pretty bright stars. They hold up pretty well to light polluted skies, for example. The beta star, the delta star, and the pi star, all 2-point-something magnitude stars mark the head of Scorpius. And then we have the big long sweep of the Scorpion's tail down around this direction. Beta, Acrab Graffias, that's actually, my understanding is that's actually a combination of 2 different names, Acrab and Graffias. Graffias is an older name for the star. And we use Allen's star names to try to understand most of what the star names are. So if you want to reference, look up star names by Allen. And Graffias, he would say, is probably comes from a version of crab. And the word for crab and the word for scorpion would have been the same, or would have been similar in a lot of older languages. So this is his suggestion that that's where Graffias comes from, is actually referring to crab there. But the beta star, Acrab Graffias, is a beautiful, beautiful binary star. And if you've got any kind of skies, any kind of telescope, you ought to be able to split this. They both look like white stars. They both look, they don't have, there's not a lot of color. So it's not really boldly colored like, say, Albireo is or some of the other binary or double stars in the sky. But it's a nice brightness difference of 2.6 magnitude and 4.9 magnitude. So you see two different colors, two different brightness stars, excuse me. They're separated by 13.7 arc seconds, which is enough that you can split it under just about any conditions with just about any telescope you have. So even the smallest telescope, a 2-inch refractor, a 2-inch reflector, I don't know if there are 2-inch reflectors, a 2-inch, 4-inch telescope, no problem splitting this. And the skies can be pretty turbulent, which they will be for me because I'm looking through so much atmosphere down to the south, and you can still split that 13.7. And yet it's not so wide that it's hard to tell that they're even associated. You're like, well, okay, there's two stars in the field of view, but they're way far apart from one another. So this makes a very nice binary star. Now, each of these, if you had the ability, could be split into very close binary stars themselves. So each of the stars in the pair is a binary star, and one star in each of those pairs is a spectroscopic binary. And those of you who've been watching this series for a long time, and I assume that's most of you, either, I always figure there's two categories of people, right? Those who've been watching this video series for a long time and those who wish they had. I don't know what else there could be, but in any event, you've got, you know that we spend some time, sometimes we go down the rabbit hole of spectroscopic binaries where you see two stars by their spectroscopic lines, the dark lines in their spectra. And you can either see them moving or not moving, but you see them moving around and you see Doppler shift. One star's coming towards you when the other star's moving away from you. And so you see a red shift and a blue shift. So you see the wavelengths of the lines shifting back and forth. And these are beautiful, wonderful things. Now, you can't see that with your backyard telescope. Maybe you have a I don't know how many of you out there are observing with a spectrograph, but I doubt that's a lot of you. And most of these are faint enough that even if you are, this would be a challenge for the systems that you have. But they're fun to know that a lot of stars are so closely spaced we can't split them apart, but we see these spectroscopic binaries. I promised myself when we started this, when I was writing this on the board, I promised myself we're not going to go down that whole rabbit hole of spectroscopic binaries today. We're just not going to talk about it very much. But we can't, you see. We just can't not. We love the spectroscopic binaries so much. So that's what we got there. As we come around the sweep of the Scorpion's tail, that star right there, Shaula, is the Lambda star. So that's the Lambda star is the tip of the tail, one of the two stars that marks the stinger in the tail of the Scorpion. Sitting right above there is a beautiful open star cluster M6, and just off it to the west and maybe below it a little bit is M7. Another big, these are big, sprawling, rich, beautiful open star clusters with very bright twinkling stars. These are among the best open star clusters in the sky. I love these clusters. Again, if you've been watching this series for a long time, you've heard me talk about these clusters, and the first night I ever observed them, when I saw them crawl over the horizon, you could see them with your naked eye. You could see these two big, beautiful, fuzzy-looking patches. You get binoculars out, and you can tell they're made of stars, and you get telescopes out. These hold up really well to most small telescopes. So again, you've got they're big, bright stars. You don't need a lot of aperture for it, and they're glittering, beautiful stars, and they kind of fill the field of view if you've got a medium to low power eyepiece in most small telescopes. And so you've just got this brilliant sprinkling of stars in there, but they're great in binoculars, absolutely fantastic in binoculars as well. So I love these open star clusters, and they were among the first things. I saw them crawl over the horizon. I couldn't figure out what they were. I was learning the night sky. I went and got my Sky Atlas 2000 by Will Tirion, and it's a big star atlas, and opened it up and figured out what they were. And you know, this really kind of starts my journey of knowing the night sky are these two clusters right here. And back in those days, just to let you know how long ago this was, 2000 is the epoch. It's the precessional epoch of where the sky is, what the coordinates of the stars are in the sky. And at that time, 2000 seemed like a long time in the future. So it was epoch 2000. It was the right ascension declinations the stars would have when the Earth had precessed to the point right at the start of the year 2000. And so we had a Sky Atlas 2000 we were using. as a paper atlas out under the night sky. That seemed like a long time into the distant future. M7 has a very, very faint, tight globular cluster right next to it. So this is your test. Everything's been fun, relatively easy to observe, but beautiful so far. This is your real observing test for the week. So 1 arc minute across globular cluster. Again, we get hung up on the sizes of globular clusters sometimes. Remember that these are open star clusters. They live in the disk of our galaxy, a few hundred stars. Globular clusters, hundreds of thousands of stars. They live in an extended halo around the center of the galaxy. They're much farther away. This is a distant globular cluster, very small. See if you can see it sitting right next to M7. Now, a slightly easier target is just 2.5 degrees to the south. Is NGC 6441, is a 3 arc minute across globular, a little bit brighter, a little bit bigger. So check out those 2 globulars to see if you can see those 2 globulars near M7. Now, M6, 1 degree 1 degree to the west is another open star cluster, and 1 degree to the south is yet another open star. So we've got 2 globulars near M7. M6 has NGC 6416 and NGC 6404 as open star clusters. Now these are made up of faint stars, so you'll need a little bit of telescope with these, and you probably need a little bit of magnification to pull these out. 6404 is a particular challenge. It's 4 arc minutes across, about the same size as this globular star cluster. So it's going to look kind of like a globular star cluster to you. Maybe it doesn't have a lot of stars in it, but it's just a condensation of fairly faint stars, a little knot of stars right there. 20 arc minutes across with probably 30 stars or 40 stars is 6416. So that's a little bit easier target for you. One of the problems we always talk about in this region sky, we're looking almost toward the middle of the galaxy right here. The center of the galaxy just sits right up here. So we're looking right in the direction of the center of the galaxy. So there's just so many stars and so much stuff in the way. You can lose open star clusters in just the glittering field of background stars. But that's a pretty good problem to have, right? When there's so many beautiful stars around that you can't pull out these open star clusters. So these are things you can go out and try to find. See if you can find these new objects. Find the stars of Scorpius, and be sure to check out Acrab Graffias as a binary star. And then you've got the moon and planets also this week. The moon's fading away. It starts half full, and it's almost completely gone by the end of the week. So it's a pretty good dark week to be able to be doing this observing. Lambda, by the way, we say this is up all night, and what we mean that. The Lambda star here, Shaula, transits sometime just before midnight this week, which means it's on the north-south line at midnight, which means it's up in the evening and it's up in the morning. So this is a great time to be out and observing Scorpius. As always, thanks for watching, everybody, and we hope you have a fantastic week of observing ahead.